Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Image Builders Presents Conversations with Michael Carson. I'm your host, Michael Carson. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We are now in Black History Month. Want to shout out to all of our pioneers, those that have done some great things to contribute to this country. Just want for you to know that Black history is American history, so we can't have American history without talking about Black people. So never forget that. Also want to shout out those of you that are watching me on YouTube. We are live tonight on YouTube, so I'm excited about that. We have our YouTube channel up, Image Builders. That's IMAGEBUILDRS. No E in Builders, DRS LLC. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch the past videos, get caught up on what we're doing. Also tonight, we are, after this show, right at 7:45, we're going live on Instagram, and that's Michael Carson Jr. You can follow me on Instagram. Dave and I will be over there for about 10 minutes, just to kind of wrap up some of the things that we talked about on this show, but give you an opportunity to weigh in on Instagram as well. And for those that are following me on Instagram but not on Facebook, we had this conversation earlier with a lot of people who aren't on Facebook, but they're on Instagram. So again, thank you for tuning in tonight. If you want to sponsor our show, feel free to reach out to me at info@imagebuilders. That's IMAGEBUILDRS.com, info@imagebuilders.com. Leave some information. I'll get back with you and let you know what the sponsorship levels are and how you can participate and be a sponsor for the show. So I'm excited tonight to have back my special guest, Dave Daniels, my buddy. He's also an accomplished fire chief, public safety guy. This guy has accolades, keys to the city, everything. Because he knows his stuff. I remember he and I met, it had to be 2018, maybe. I think it was 2018 we met. And we held our first Empowerment Men's Conference in Atlanta. And Dave came in, he bought his ticket, came in to be a part of the conference. And then he looked at me and he said, well, is there going to be a public safety message of where people go to the bathroom or what they're supposed to do? And I was like, oh, I didn't think I needed that. I didn't know I needed that. So I was like, sure. I don't. He's like, well, where's the bathroom? And I was like, it's over there. So I allowed him to get up and stand, and he actually did a public safety, a PSA, if you will, to let all the men at the conference know that where the bathroom was, what to do in the case of an emergency. And again, I didn't know that I needed to do that, but I was glad he was there to kind of direct us and lead us into that. So without further ado, thank you so much, Dave, for being here again tonight. Last week, we had a really good conversation. I got a lot of good feedback from people about our conversation on workplace bullying. Tonight, we want to talk about solutions. We want to make the show primarily about solutions. But I did some more digging about workplace bullying, and the statistics were absolutely bananas, if you will. There was a 2017 survey taken, and 60 million Americans said that they were affected by workplace bullying. 60 million, that's a lot of people. That's right. It also went on to say that 81% are perceived as that their company is going to do nothing. That even though they're being bullied, 81% who were surveyed said their company's not going to do anyone. 71% felt that that they would be victimized by their employers. Mm-hmm. That even if they came forth, their employers would harm them in some kind of way, or some kind of retribution against them. And then 29% said that they didn't even bother, and that it would be better for them to just go ahead and find another job. So I don't want to take too much of tonight's show to talk about workplace bullying, but talk about those numbers and how that affects our community as a whole, especially for those of us that are working from home.
Bullying exists in a culture, not only at an organization, but even in the country. The reason that those numbers, one of the reasons that those numbers are so high is that it's acceptable. As a matter of fact, it's a way of being. It's a way of doing business for some people. They seem to believe that the way to get something, and I cannot say they're getting the best, but to get something out of people is through violence, basically, because that's what it is. And it is so normalized in the United States that, a lot of people, they know good and well there's no reason to report it because nobody's going to do anything about it. And we don't have a legal construct around it to give people redress, even if they do bring it up. Because, as I said before, that bullying technically is legal. It is bullying a person that's in a protected class that becomes illegal. And that's hard to prove. I mean, it just is. So we, until we, again, become like or aspire to be like some other countries, and the closest one to us being Canada, until we decide we want to be like that, those numbers are going to stay the same, except in these small pockets that are going to hear some of the things we talk about tonight and decide that we're going to be different.
So what are they doing in Canada? You mentioned Canada. What specifically are they doing in Canada?
So Canada, in Canada, there is an entire national standard, and I can't recall how many pages, but it's well over 100 pages of last reading it, that describes what the psychosocial safety culture of an organization needs to look like. Like, there are standards out there for ladders and for, how you drive a vehicle safely and fire codes. And there's all these things, but there's not a lot out there that gives you a model of even what they should look like. So people do what they always did before. And when they do what they did, we get what we got, which is years and years of years. Again, remember, this country's, industry in this country started off with labor that was brought over on ships from Africa and treated like property. So we don't have a great kind of, the labor movement, all those kinds of things started after really bad things happened. So we just don't have a great record here. And again, I shout out Canada anytime I get an opportunity, because now I'm not suggesting it all is perfect up there, because I've never lived there. Folks in Canada, and they say it's terrible. But in terms of the objective standards and evidence that's available, at least they have a standard. We have nothing.
Right. So I know here in Georgia, you're working with, you've introduced some things to some of the legislators, or a couple of the legislators, around this topic. So touch on a little bit about what that is, what you hope to gain from it, and what type of support you need with respect to it. So
again, if I'm not mistaken, hearing those numbers, I believe that you may have gotten some of those numbers from an organization called the Workplace Bullying Institute. And as I mentioned last week, I've been an affiliate for a while. Now, it's not like a membership type of thing. It's really those of us who've been trained and kind of hang out together. But the Institute has been working for years to try to get what's called a healthy workplace bill passed. And it's gotten to, various levels around the country. It hasn't passed. Now, it's passed in Puerto Rico, but it hasn't passed in any of the states quite yet. And I've talked to, both my state senator and my state representative about this bill. Both have been very supportive of it. But of course, those processes sometimes take years in order to get action. And basically, I'm at the moment, an army of one, because I don't have a big organization or anything behind me technically. But I've talked to both of them about introducing the bill, and we got an opportunity a couple of weeks ago, and it's looking like at least a couple of people are listening. So we will see. It's going to be challenging because, as I said, there are those that really feel like it's okay to treat employees however they want to treat them. So when you bring things like this up, the first thing they talk about is the cost and, what's going to be the issues if it goes wrong. What I try to convince people, a healthy workplace is a prevention strategy. So as a safety person, I'm not about, I used to be an EMT. So I've seen all kinds of people hurt. And, I was telling someone today, I've seen people, burn beyond recognition, their bones broken, heads blown off, really bad stuff. But that's not, my job as a safety professional is to help prevent that stuff. Because once you get hurt, I'm not a doctor, I can't heal you. So this is about how do we prevent, and again, our conversation tonight, how do you prevent bullying? Not how do you fire the person who did it and, give treatment to the person who was bullied. How do you create an environment where there won't be bullying in the first place? if we put more energy into that, we would be much better off as a society, in my opinion.
So do you think a different strategy or both and strategy would be to work at the local level as well, or do you think the state level would be the best way to?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm at the stage of my life where I don't believe in binary choices for anything. It's always both and for me. It's what is it going to take to get the goal achieved? So I told myself a couple of years ago, rather than sitting around and complaining about how my elected officials suck, is to do something about it. And the only thing I really can do is vote. And so I looked at, everybody who represents me from my city council all the way through the president. And when those folks don't, at least in my opinion, as one person, if they don't do things that I think are in my interest, then I try to do what I can to change them, And so it's both and, because this environment exists at every level. We saw it in the White House for the last 4 years. We had a bully in the White House. That's how 45 got things done. And again, this is my opinion,
Yeah, with respect to the labor movement, and we know that they tend to favor one party more so than the other party. What is the labor movement stand been on workplace bullying? Have they introduced legislation? Have they attempted to introduce legislation on a federal level around workplace bullying?
Yeah, to be quite honest, because I am not necessarily a labor leader. I have I have a lot of friends who are in the labor movement. They've got their own issues to deal with because they bullied each other. So, I mean, nobody's hands are clean on this. Now, what I will say is here recently, I've been gotten connected to some folks with some of the labor movement in the Atlanta metropolitan area who are very supportive. One of the groups, again, I'll they'll remain nameless at the moment, but talked to me about how they had a worker in their union who was just simply trying to do their job and reported a customer who was consistently threatening them. Well, the organization didn't do anything about it, and the customer came back and killed the individual. And so, of course, after that, then of course everybody gets all wound up. But the warning was there before the person got killed. And again, this is about prevention. How do we create an environment where we don't have to have a conversation about the funeral and the benefits and all the other stuff? Let's do the preventative stuff rather than complaining after the fact.
A few more statistics from that survey I quoted earlier. 70% of men bully other men. 60% of men bully women. 65% of those that were victims lost their job. That was like 65%. That's a high number.
Yes.
And 40% suffer stress-related illnesses. So when we talk about, have you found in your research that adults respond to bullying the same way maybe kids respond to bullying? Is there a similarity, or they deal with them?
Yeah, it is. So the physical manifestations of bullying are no different, regardless to what your age is. It's the fight or flight mechanisms in our body. That's where our body is set up from when creation or evolution, or whatever one you believe. But so we have in our brain, we've got this thing called the amygdala, and the amygdala is there from the days when we had to, we were out looking for food and a dinosaur showed up and we ran because we heard the Trump and we ran off. That amygdala is still there, but we've also got a prefrontal cortex up in our higher learning where we make our decisions and learn things and stuff. And the issue is we don't get out of our amygdala more often because we have this reaction, and it's easily triggered by this natural reaction to protect yourself. So it's a lot easier to trigger people than it is to care for people. And often it gets triggered, and the person who's doing the triggering doesn't even know it. So, Michael, if I don't know you and aren't around you, I could say things that will trigger you, and I didn't even know I did it. And that's a lot of the issue. A lot of the bullies.
So,
go ahead.
So is that giving the bully an out to say, well, hey,
it is not.
I was bullying you?
It is not. Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, it is though, because this often what happens when we get into these conversations is that, the bullied bully others. So hurt people. So because I've been bullied,
Right.
I want retribution. I want to get back at the bully. Well, I'm just doing the same thing to them. So
Right.
the human part of me says that, and again, the reality is I don't care why you did it. There still should be a consequence that you did it, because I evaluate you based on what you
Right.
did. I don't really care what your intent was, but again, I do realize that some of the bullying that exists, particularly for adults, it's not that there's some evil people. It's that they have limited tools in their toolbox. The only tool they know,
Okay.
because their daddy beat them, mama beat them, their boss yelled at them. That's all they've ever
Mhm.
seen. That's all they've ever seen. So
Right.
that's what they do to other people, And again, I see it in the public sector, in the private sector. I see it everywhere. And again, sadly, the better trained and observant of it you are, the more you will see it, because it's kind of like it is everywhere. It's everywhere.
I heard someone say last week on another show around another topic. They were saying how many sick people are in our midst, in our community, and they were saying sick people from the sense of they've not been healed from wounds
That's right.
either that were inflicted on them as children
That's right.
or
That's
inflicted
right.
on them by other adults. But there's a lot of sick people who haven't had those wounds
That,
dealt with.
yes.
So what I want to transition to, if I can, is let's talk about some solutions. And I want to frame it. I took some notes here. I want to throw out a couple words or a statement, if you will, and then you tell me how we could tie solutions to that.
Okay.
If we can do it that way.
Sure.
All right. So the first word is acknowledgement. So when you think of acknowledgement, what would you think a solution would be?
So, it is impossible to solve a problem that you won't acknowledge even exists.
Okay.
It's impossible. I mean, nobody's going to change something when they don't even think it's there. And, that is the first step to any healing, reconciliation, fixing. You got to acknowledge that it's there, it's interesting when these things are brought to our attention. Often what happens is what folks go defensive. Well, it's not that. It is, some of these are opinions. They're backed up by research, but I don't have it all in front of me, so I won't quote it. But I just don't know how in the world you can tell me what my perceptions are. You can't. And my perceptions are real to me. So when people say they feel some kind of way about something, they do. They do. And to acknowledge that is the first step. To say, oh, what are you talking about? You're wrong. No, you can't. I am never wrong with my feelings. My feelings are mine. Don't tell me my feelings are wrong. Now, tell me that you don't agree with them, or you don't understand them, or they don't seem to fit the context. You can say all that kind of stuff. But to say that's part of the problem. We have to acknowledge something before we can do anything about it.
Okay, so from a business perspective and from an employee perspective, so with respect to acknowledgement, so then the company should acknowledge that this is a problem, and that it could be a problem in their organization, and then from an employee perspective, they should acknowledge that they're being bullied. They shouldn't allow it just to go.
Yeah. So the acknowledgement, we use it at least in the way I'm describing it now. This acknowledgement. So the person being bullied, they know what's going on. This is
Okay.
So in the context of an organization, and organizations are about humans getting together and deciding they want to do something, whatever that is. The organization itself is responsible for all of this stuff. It is not any of the individuals. It is the whoever decides to start this thing. So I have a company, but it's just me. I don't have any employees. It's just me. But as soon as I invite another person, me and that other person have to have a conversation about how we are going to treat each other. That's it. Because, right. And it doesn't mean that either of us is right or wrong, but we're creating a new thing. I know what I like, you know what you like, but we don't know what each other. It's no different than, a marriage. So my wife and I, when we met when we were in high school, we didn't, whole long story, but we got together again 34 years ago. And we're still figuring out some stuff about each other. So I'm not sure how people think this is going to be easy if you don't ever even say anything. You don't acknowledge anything. You just bring me into the organization and have me be like you. Well, I'm not you. I don't want to be you. I want to do my job, but I want to do it my way.
Right. So the next word is policy. What does a policy look like? Just quickly, like some tenements of a policy.
A policy has to identify what you want people to do. It has to give them some guidance on how to do it, not a lot, but some guidance on, kind of the rules of the road. And it also has to explain the consequences if you don't.
Okay. What about training and educating staff?
That's the only way you change anything, period. You don't change things by, so even the policies don't change anything. You can write until your fingers fall off. If you never train people on how the policy should be applied, it's never going to work. And I've seen, again, as I said, I was with the fire department fire service in general for a number of years. One of my Seattle experiences where, we had to study for promotion, and they'd stack these books. We had these manuals that were like, inches thick. And once I made deputy fire chief, I decided I was going to fix that. So I wanted to cut some of those pages down. The deal is you can have thousands of pages, but if nobody reads them, they're of no value. And sometimes we have too many pages of policies, but we've never trained anybody on how they work. So they're paper. They look good when you get ready to hang people, because that's generally when they come up, but they're of limited value.
So with respect to training and education, would it be something you recommend yearly, quarterly, or would it depend on the culture or how the culture is around your organization?
It depends on the topic. Now, from a safety perspective, OSHA has some requirements. There's certain training that you have to give people every year. There's not a lot of it. There's only about 3 or 4 topics. Anything that people need to be certified, they some accrediting or certifying body will say what the recurring theme is. But again, OSHA also talks about you should generally train people when you first hire them, when you give them a new job, when the environment around them changes, or after something bad happens. And that's the last one. But you should be, if you do the other 3, you won't probably have the 4th one. But that's generally the kind of parameters around when you should train people. And again, what some organizations do, we train on this, we train once a year. And that's why it doesn't work, though, because everybody knows you're just pencil whipping. They know you're not serious because you don't live it out on a day-to-day basis anyway.
So next, what would the framework for reporting look like? The reporting framework.
The
so
framework.
Someone wants to report that they're being bullied. How should that look?
It should look like the policy says it should look. It's just that simple. So that is something that has to be defined in whatever policy you have. It has to say that, again, here are our standards in this organization. Here's how we interact with each other. And it's based on these examples. These are examples of what you should and should not be doing. And then again, here is how you report it, who you report it to, when you report it, the time. All that is established. And again, because we don't have a law, this becomes the kind of administrative process of how. And again, it not only, sometimes people look at these as just, these are just to try to protect the people. This is to protect the organization too.
Right.
There are lots and lots and lots of organizations who have gone down, but they generally go down for 1 or 2 reasons. They mess the money up or they mistreat the people. And I'd argue that it's easier to mistreat the people than it is to mess up the money.
Do they typically go down for mistreating the people? Because it seems like they only go down for messing up the money. I mean, I typically when you hear about a company going bankrupt or a company losing its value, it's because, the CEO was a jerk or something, or their brand was affected. But you rarely hear they're going under because of how bad they're treating the people.
Okay, when I say treating people, I'm not just talking about the internal people either. I'm talking about the external people. I'm talking about people in general. because it is people who decide whether or not I'm going to buy your stock, whether I'm going to buy your product. So you can mistreat the public by selling them crap. You sell them crap. It costs too much. Your service is garbage. That's why your business closes, because you don't care about people. And,
okay.
and
So in a way, you're well, not bullying the public, but you're basically dumping on
in
the
some
public
ways
the
you
same
are.
type of, okay.
In some regards, oh, absolutely. So we're the only game in town, X. So there are, and again, I won't call people out on, on video, but there are some services right now that, because of where I live in the city of South Fulton, I have limited options. So I have to go certain places. And when I get there, they feel in some kind of way, act in some kind of way. And recently there was a service that I've walked out of places that I've been going for years because I wasn't feeling it today.
Right.
That's about how you treated me. It's my money. Right. I'll drive further to get people to treat me the way first of all, I respect myself. I care about myself, and I'm not going to let you treat me that way. So I'll take my money someplace else. And the older I get, the more interested I am in that.
Okay.
So it is about how we interact with other people. And again, if you will bully your employees, of course you're going to bully me, because I only show up once or twice a year or whatever. You'll treat me like trash. You'll yell at me on the phone, hang up on me, because you treat the people. I can tell how you're going to relate to other people based on how you treat the people around you. Like I say, you treat them sloppy,
Yeah. Yeah. So we hear this term a lot, and I've heard it. I've had managers and, vice presidents I work with and work for to say, oh, I have an open door policy. I have an open door policy. Is an open door policy, is it good or bad? I mean, what are your feelings about open door policies? Because sometimes I think people just kind of throw that out there, but they really don't really, it's like, I don't want to be bothered, or I care, but I really don't want to hear, because it could affect, how our department runs or how we're perceived or whatever. So what do you think about open door policies?
Open door policies are a means, not an end. They're not an end at all. So I got an open door. What? Oh, yeah, you open the door, you let people come in there, then you don't do a damn thing when they tell you what's up. So what's the point? You can have a closed door and do nothing. So it's a tactic that people use to make it look like they're open. Like I said, there are a lot of folks. And again, even with folks like that, often people do that because they don't know any better. They don't have any other tools. The reason why they resist dealing with stuff, I consult with people right now in a bunch of places around the country that are having issues with a laissez-faire supervisor or boss who just kind of, everything's, that's not that big, because they don't know how. They have no idea. The organization never trained them. They don't have any. So they're an engineer, they're a lawyer, or whatever, but nobody ever trained them how to deal with people. You don't give me any training, drills, exercises. We don't practice that. We practice making money. Like the good book says, it is the love of money that's the root of all evil. And you can tell how much people love money based on, so for the money, I'll steal from you. I'll make you work too hard. I won't, it's weird, but it is what it is. And because people have seen it so much, they feel like that's the way it's supposed to be done, because it does work. It leaves a lot of bodies in their wake, but it works. It works.
So if I was to come to you, so to put a button on this, if I were to come to you and I say, Dave, unfortunately we have a culture in our company, people are being bullied. I didn't see it coming. There weren't some things in place that I could have done. What 3 or 4 things could you tell me off the bat that I might need to look at, and then you could possibly help me with?
Okay, so the first thing I'll say, this is a general comment that
with that scenario.
Yeah, there are no quick solutions, but I have to give you 5 things. You have to care. You have to care. You have to be kind. You have to be competent. You have to be consistent, and you have to have consequences. And it's if that is what. So again, there is in the literature right now, there are multiple definitions for what bullying is. But they all kind of center around this, abusive behavior and that type of definition. And it is about the group that you're with and the people you're interacting with. So first, you have to care. You got to give a damn. Because if you don't care, then we might as well stop right there. All the open door policies and all this other nonsense. If you really don't care, why don't you just come out with it and say, we treat people like trash here. We pay really well. And, folks will know that. They'll come with that expectation. They'll come girded up to fight you every day. Just be honest about it. It's like racism, sexism, all these other isms. Just be honest with it. If you really don't care, the rest of it's not going to work. And then if you care, it's take the kind approach, because even people that you care, my mom used to tell me, I care for what's the reason why I'm beating you. Well, there are people who think that because I care, I got to be tough on them. I got to tough love. Now, what about how come we can't start with kindness? I care enough to start with kindness, to start with my assumption that you're not a bad person. You're not trying to do this. Why not start there? Why not? The other way got us where we are. And then once you go care, kindness, have some competence around whatever it is you're trying to implement, because that's where the training comes in. And frankly, if you're not competent, get somebody who is. If you don't have any background in this topic, you're just going to mess it up. You are. I'm just sorry. You're going to mess it up. And then once you get whatever it is in place, it's going to take time. The bullying culture didn't start overnight. It didn't start with hiring one person. So it has to be consistent application of the things that you learned in your class or your training, consistent. And then when that's all said and done, there have to be consequences for the handful of people who've decided they don't want to participate. And again, consequence is not a negative term. The consequences, the people you promote should be people who are not bullies. The people that get the raises are the ones who people think really highly of. Why is it the nice people are always the ones who don't get promoted, who get sit over in the corner, who don't get the corner office? And frankly, and excuse the expression, but the assholes, they're the ones who always seem to get ahead because the system is okay with it.
Right. Wow, that's a lot. So you got to care enough. You got to be kind. You got to deal with the competency. It takes time, and then there are consequences, good or bad, either one. Yes. That was definitely good. We are out of time for this show. I have a couple more things before we conclude. But we're at the time where this show is concluded. I know you are a huge Seattle Seahawks fan.
I am.
And and I know your team is not in the Super Bowl this weekend. So who do you have for the Super Bowl this weekend? Who are you rooting for?
Mahomes.
Or are you rooting for anybody?
I'm Kansas City Chiefs. I'm a Chiefs fan this week. And
okay.
Part of it is my around the quarterback from the other team. So
right.
Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan too. I'm looking for Mahomes to do some work. Yes. One final thing that I'll say for those of you that are watching, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I want to give Dave the last word, so I'll just say this: happy 35th anniversary to Janet Jackson. People who know me know I love Janet Jackson. This is the 35th anniversary for the album Control. So happy 35th anniversary, Janet Jackson. Love you so much. Those of you that are watching tonight, remember, you can tune in every Thursday night right here on Facebook at Image Builders, facebook.com/Image Builders, IMAGEBUILDRS. We're now live on YouTube tonight. You can also find us on YouTube, these broadcasts at Image Builders LLC. And right after this show, Dave and I are going to jump on Instagram to further this conversation for about 5 to 10 minutes for those that follow me on Instagram. So I wanted to give Dave the final word tonight, but I thank you guys for tuning in to this broadcast. Dave, take it away with the final word.
So there are some who describe the ways in which we eliminate bullying as soft. They call it soft skills, and they say it's not tough and it's not manly. And I agree with them. I think we need more kindness and softness in the way we interact with each other. Because as you said earlier, there are a lot of people who at some point in their life they were hurt, but there are others at some point in their life that they were damaged. And they were damaged not by anything physical, it's by something that got in their head. And to the extent we want to rid ourselves of the kind of toxic kinds of discussions, even we're seeing in our politics, I was raised by a single mom, and there are some days that I believe that the world would have been a better place had women been in charge, because they tend to be socially trained to be softer. We need to be softer. We really do.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate, again, you guys tuning in tonight. Hop over on Instagram at about 7:45. We'll be on Instagram live for about 10 minutes. Thank you again. You've tuned in tonight to Image Builders Present Conversations with Michael Carson. I'll see you next week.